So I first and foremost, I appreciate you coming on the show and also waiting for me to get
Oh,
everything
that's
ready.
okay. That's okay.
So how do you pronounce your name correctly? Is it Kamara?
Kamara. Yeah.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So just like
Yeah,
it
just like
sounds.
how it looks.
Yeah, yeah, just like how it looks. Yeah, you're right. So, so how was your day today?
Yeah, it's been really good. I had client check-ins this morning, been and trained. I've come home, eaten my post-workout meal, and then I've just squeezed in another meal because I was running a little bit late this morning, so I didn't quite get all my meals in. I was supposed to have an
Hmm.
extra meal before I trained, but I didn't quite get it in, so I've had to squeeze that in now, just so that I'm not running behind when we finish the podcast.
Gotcha, gotcha. So how is it now? Like you mentioned client check-ins with the
Yeah.
UK being, kind of locked down and everything. How is training going? Like training clients and all that. And
To be honest with you, like my clients have all got quite a good either home gym, or some of them have got sneaky access to gyms.
uh, sneaky.
Um, so a few of them have got like partners or friends that own gyms, so they're sort of
Mhm.
okay. And then a few of them have bought quite a lot of equipment, and they're at home and they've got pretty decent setups. So I'm lucky in that sense that all my clients have been able to get like a
Mhm.
fair amount of decent access to like gym equipment in that sense.
So you didn't have any issues with that. So that's good. I mean, because
Yeah.
right now it doesn't. I mean, I thought I heard. I've done some podcasts with people from the UK recently, a few more than normal, and I thought someone said that there's a date now that they're thinking of pulling back some of the restrictions. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're looking, well, they've put it out as like a provisional date, like if everything goes well, it's going to be the 12th of April.
Okay.
So the 12th of April should be all like the gyms, close contact services like hairdressers and things like that should open.
Hmm.
And then they're also, I think they're also looking at pubs from outside, if you can sit outside. Restaurants, I think, are at a later date. I think they can do takeaways from the 12th, but to actually sit in and eat is a later date. But yeah,
Hmm.
all being well, the 12th is kind of when we're going to start opening up a little bit, which I think we need to now. Like,
Yeah.
we need to start opening up a little bit more. People that have got businesses and things.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's the reason behind the opening up? So, like, I mean, they closed down because of the concerns of the COVID virus. So, um, why are they now deciding to open up? Or is it because the vaccines are coming out, or like,
Yeah,
did they
I
give a
think
reason?
they said that like nearly 40, well, about 40% now of the population of the UK has been vaccinated.
Okay.
So I think it's more that like by then it'll maybe even be probably over 50% maybe, and then
Hmm.
that's most of the vulnerable people that would be affected like the worst from the virus. So I'm guessing I've not really been listening to the news. I kind of been staying away from it a little bit,
It's
as I think it's
depressing.
quite negative. It's negative to be listening to every
Yeah,
day.
for
And
sure.
people get obsessed with it. They listen to it every morning. They wake up and it's on the news. And I've just not been listening to it. The only time I really listen is when they're doing like announcements and things like that. So yeah, I just think that they're wanting to try and start opening things a little bit for people's mental health and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing by then a lot more people will have had the vaccine, so that's probably why they've put it as a date
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, when I in the morning I try to like wake up and I have like that little Google like little system, and you ask it
Yeah.
to like do the news or whatnot, and it's like every article it pulls up or every conversation has to do with the virus, and it can be like very, very depressing, like just tough to constantly always like be talking about it. It's not
Yeah,
really.
it's negative news, and you don't need that, especially when you wake up first thing in the morning. The last thing you need is
Yeah,
negativity on your day. Like,
yeah,
no, I've been staying
absolutely.
away from it. I think it's the best bet.
So what happens to an individual that, like you said, some of them have sneaky access to gyms. So what happens to a person that like gets caught, or is it a fine?
Yeah,
Like what
so
what do they do?
yeah, so there is fines. I'm not sure how much it is. I know the gym, if the gym gets caught, they get fined. I think it's about £1,000. Um, like if it's like a one-off occasion. I think if it's
Hmm.
recurring, I think they can charge them more. But I think for each person, I don't know whether it's like between 100 to £200 fine if they get caught. But
Hmm.
I,
Did,
yeah,
did you
I
see
mean,
the
they're lucky that none of them have got caught. They are very, very, very careful about it.
Yeah, well, did you the most prominent thing that I've seen was, and I don't know if you got a chance to see it some months back. Believe it was Nathan the Asher that
Yeah,
he was. I mean, it looked like there was excessive force involved, but whatever the case may be, like the police, like definitely had like physically restrained him, and
mm.
it was for him having his gym open, right? From what I remember.
Yeah, he decided to keep his gym, like, officially open, as in publicly open. So
I
not
see.
just letting certain people in, he kept it, like, publicly open because he
Gotcha.
believed that, him keeping his gym open was helping his members that have mental health issues, that if their sole thing in life is to go to the gym and they can't do that, it would
Hmm.
cause, like, them to, I don't know, their mental health to deteriorate in that sort of sense. So I think he just decided that he took it upon himself
Yeah.
that he was going to keep his gym open, and I understand it, and I fully support it. I
Hmm.
understand it completely. He probably has helped quite a lot of people, like mentally being
Yeah.
able to go to the gym. And I mean, at the minute, obviously, he's had to shut. Um, but yeah, that it
Yeah.
wasn't nice to see them videos. It was awful.
Yeah, that was tough. It was very surprising. But well, initially when I saw it, I was thinking maybe something else was going on. You know, because I believe I think it was him that maybe had some legal issues the year before, and so I thought,
Yeah,
well, maybe the same issues are revisiting like the situation. You know, maybe this is the same different situation for the same issues. And then I realized after some more news came out that it did have to do with the gym. And when you see the reaction of the law enforcement, you think it's something like extremely serious that's happening until you find
yeah.
out that was all just because he kept his gym open. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy the response that the police have had. Like, I don't honestly think it's completely down to the police. Like, you can say obviously they're just doing their job.
sure.
Um, but if you think that something you're doing in your job is wrong, then you shouldn't really do it.
Right. Right.
But I suppose like they can't, some of them just feel like they're a bit hushed and they can't go against what they're being told to do. So if they're being told to go and raid a gym because there's people going in, then they've kind of got
Yeah.
to do it. But I suppose that the force that they used, um, I would say isn't acceptable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It definitely didn't look like that from the video. I think a lot of people were
Yeah,
surprised, you know, to see that. Yeah, in
yeah,
the U.S. here, it's like we've never really went on full lockdown. We've only been, you know, like partially, like especially with the gyms, they've been pretty much open, limited capacity, you know. So that's been good, you know. Just depends on how you look at it, on your viewpoint. But I think a way for people to work out is extremely important. You know,
oh, definitely,
it's all
yeah,
we're already so, you know, sedentary. Like people already sit majority of the day, you know, and it's to not have like that hour and a half of working out on a daily basis is going to completely, you know, crush some people. So
yeah, yeah, definitely, I agree.
yeah. So how did you get into like fitness? Was this something that you've always had a passion for?
Yeah, so I've always been into sports from being very young. I did gymnastics from the age of 6. I also did a little bit of Irish dancing, but I never really took that very far because I was never really
Like
good at
Irish
it.
dancing, like river dancing? Is
Yeah,
that
like, yeah.
okay? That's cool.
I did that as a young age. My mum just was the kind of parent that was pushy and pushed me into doing every single sport.
Hmm.
So every night I would come home from school and I would have some after school sport or some after school club that I would do. So I did netball, I did taekwondo, I did swimming, I did gymnastics, I did trampolining, I I did Irish dancing. I did everything as a kid. Every day of the week, my mum was taking me somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Um, but gymnastics become like my main sport, so I kind of dropped all the others when I started becoming really good at gymnastics. And my mum
Hmm.
was like, okay, we found a sport that you're good at. And I really went with that up until the age of 17. um, I then dislocated my shoulder and had to take 2 years out. And within the 2 years that I took out, I had lots of issues with my shoulder. It's now completely fine.
Hmm.
Um, but at the time, I couldn't go back into training gymnastics properly because everything was solely based around being able to hold my body weight on my shoulders no matter what movement I did.
Mhm.
Within gymnastics, no matter what skills I did, everything was with my shoulder. So I couldn't actually train at all any gymnastics. I still kept up some things like splits and things like that, but
Mhm.
I couldn't train properly. So the squad that I was training in, I ended up like kind of regressing, and they was all progressing, and they all ended up being a lot better than what I was. So I couldn't just like join back in with them after
Right.
my shoulder got better. So then I kind of thought, right, I was at the age of 18 by that point, 18, 19, and I was like, I need something to do to replace what I was doing at that time. Like I was always doing gymnastics 4 or 5 times a week, and I needed something to kind of replace that. Just while my shoulder was still recovering a little bit. So I started going to the gym just as like a kind of keep fit. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just doing abs and shoulders
Doing
and
abs. Got it.
odd little bits. Like I didn't really know what I was doing.
Right.
And then I kind of seen this guy in the gym that was a bodybuilder, and he kind of took me under his wing and kind of taught me how to train. And then it just went from there. I ended up doing like a PT course at college, and then obviously went on to go to uni and things like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and then kind of got took under his wing, and then ended up doing a show like 6 months later.
Mm. 6 months, a quick turnaround from just
Yeah,
starting to
yeah. I was
training.
only very small though. I was only very small.
Yeah, I gotcha. So what were you competing in then? Like if you were very small, what division?
So I did toned figure. So I don't know if I think you probably have different categories. Obviously, it wasn't in the IFBB.
Yeah,
Um,
we do have figure. Like I know figure in the IFBB. So is it similar? Are they looking for similar things? As,
no, it's completely different. So I'd say it was closer to the bikini, but not as lean.
mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to describe because if you only know IFBB, it's very, very different. So I competed in NABA and I
Yeah,
did
I
PTA
I
as
do know
well.
that, but I can't remember like what their divisions look like.
Yeah, so they had like toned figure. So now they do have bikini, but they never used to have bikini when I first started. When I first started, the first category was toned figure, which is probably bikini size, just a little bit softer. You
Mm,
could get
I
away with
see.
being a bit bigger, but it's more on condition. You're just quite soft.
Right.
It's just I don't know how else to explain it. It's
No,
just
no,
like a
that
nice
makes
full
sense. Hmm.
soft look. Probably where you would be if you was dieting for a show. Probably where you would want to be around about 8 weeks out.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Between 8 and 6 weeks out. So kind of still soft, full, but lean enough
Hmm.
to see abs sort of thing, but not
So,
too
so like something
too
you would
muscular.
take to the beach if you were like going
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the.
like you kind of like a beach body. Yeah.
Hmm.
I did toned figure, and then they have lots of other categories. It's so complicated now. Like there's so many different categories.
Yeah, it does seem it seemed like they every organization adds like a bunch of new divisions now. Even the
Yeah.
IFBB has added so many new divisions over the years. So I was going to ask you about the gymnastics. It's so interesting to me because it seems like in gymnastics, everyone that I've interviewed that's in fitness, that's done gymnastics, like the stories are peculiarly peculiarly similar, where it's like always some kind of injury, and then they're out for like quite some time, and then they can't like get back. Is gymnastics just a highly like are you highly prone to injuries in gymnastics? I mean, I
Yeah,
know
it's
obviously they're
very
doing a lot, but
it's very intense.
Mhm.
I think when you're younger, they put you through. So you could be doing 30 to 40 hours of training a week. So it's kind of like having a full-time job.
Mhm.
And they do the stretching and the conditioning work is I'd say it's quite stressful on your body, especially from being quite young. But that's why the athletes are so good. That's why gymnasts are how they are because of the
Yeah,
amount of conditioning and stretching
sure.
and flexibility work that they put in. And obviously they do that to prevent themselves from getting injured. But I think when you've been doing it for so long and when you're fatigued and you're still training, it becomes inevitable that you are going to get injured. I don't think any gymnast can go through their full career without getting an injury.
Yeah.
It's it's just kind of inevitable. And I think as you grow up as well, you're more prone to getting more injuries. Whereas when you're younger, you can just kind of throw yourself around and you don't really get any injuries. When you
Sure.
get older, everything else starts kind of creeping up on you, and you
Yeah.
getting
Well,
injuries.
that was that. I see what you're talking about, because there was that whole controversial thing with China, with them. Supposedly, people were saying that they were using girls that were very young in gymnastics, and the common person might think, well, why would younger be better? Like, it wouldn't necessarily be better, right? Like, you would in other sports, being a little older is better, but I guess in gymnastics, being younger is a benefit, because you can, do a
Yeah.
lot more things. You're a lot more flexible. Your body gives a little more. So,
Yeah, definitely. Like I remember from being young, I remember going home and having like DOMS and aching.
hmm
I think I complained to my mum every night that my muscles were hurting, but I never really remember getting any injuries. I know I did in competition once. I stubbed my toe and I actually broke it, but I just
Ooh.
continued. And then at the end, I was like, "Mum, I think I've hurt my toe."
Yeah.
We went to A&E afterwards because my toe was massive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd broken it, but
Yeah.
that was only like quite a minor injury up until once obviously I started getting a little bit older. I think I was 17 when I dislocated my shoulder, and that was probably the first injury, and that wrote me off from gymnastics.
Yeah.
I knew at the time that once I'd done it, um, that I wasn't going to be competitive anymore in gymnastics.
hmm
It's kind of the thing, like once you get any serious sort of injury like that, sometimes it's quite hard to come back into, especially competitively.
Yeah. It's it, what did you do, like, to recover from the injury? I know you said you stopped competing in gymnastics, but how long did it take, and what kind of work did you do to make you feel better? Because you said right now it's 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely 100%. I don't feel like I have any sort of issues with it at all now. I went and saw a physio because after it was put back in, obviously I had to take some time to strengthen up the muscles and the ligaments and tendons and things like that around it because it was very loose. And then over the last 2 years after I did it, I kept getting like partial dislocations and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
just because I think my tendons and ligaments were sort of stretched and it
Yeah.
just kept dropping out. So I could hold a dumbbell in my arm, and if I let my arm relax, rather than trying to physically hold my shoulder in, if
hmm
I let it relax, it would just drop out.
Wow. That's
A lot
crazy.
of the time, it would just go back in. As soon as I let
Uh-huh.
go, it would just pop back in, and it didn't feel painful, but sometimes it did it did come out and I couldn't get it back in. So yeah, I just kind of I went and saw a physio and I did lots of strengthening exercises, but it
hmm
took me. They did tell me that I needed to have a pin in my shoulder to hold it in,
hmm
and they said that would be the best thing for me. But I knew myself that I wanted to continue doing sport, and I thought if I do something like that, once you've had surgery for something like that, I think that you're always going to have some sort of issue.
Yeah.
That's going to cause implications later down the line. So for me, I was like, right, well, I'm going to try everything I can before I get to that point.
hmm
So I went and saw. They obviously sent me to a physio, and I followed the physio's plan. And it was just strengthening exercises for my shoulder, stability
hmm
work, and things like that. And then I think I found that as I was training in the gym and I was able to start shoulder pressing and side raising a lot more weight as it got stronger, I
Yeah.
think the actual building muscle around it helped,
Mm.
kind of helped the joint be more stable just because there's a lot more muscle around it. So I think obviously training and bodybuilding, as I progressively got into bodybuilding after that, helped with my shoulder massively.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I knew a guy when I was younger and I used to wrestle, and there was a guy. He had a similar thing happen to him. His shoulder popped out, and then after that, it seemed like it would pop out for no, like, almost nothing. Like, it would
Yeah,
just be something very small, and it would just come right out. And that reminded me when you said that, it's like once it happens, it's much easier for it, like, to happen again and again and again until, like, unless you just do something about it, which that's quite a predicament to be in. I could only
yeah,
imagine.
sure.
So
Yeah.
you said that, so they you were wanted to they wanted you to put a pin in your shoulder, and you
Mm.
decided, at that point, like, I don't want to do that. It's going to cause me like more issues down the line if in my athletic career. How old were you
Mm.
when you decided to make that
I was
choice?
18. So I'd
So
done
very
I'd done
young. That's a scary
mm,
situation, to be that young.
I'd obviously dislocated it when I was 17. I did a year of physio, and they said that it kind of got to a point where it looked like it had stalled. And I had like a review like a year after. And I think they wanted to pull physio because I don't know whether it was down to costs or what, but I think if they was offering surgery, then maybe it wasn't down to cost because the surgery would cost more than it would for a physio. So
Sure.
I think they just offered me the surgery. I think with me being so young
Mhm.
and the fact that it was still an issue, that I think they was quite concerned about it. But then I just kind of said, look, I'm willing to try another year or however long it's going to take to get my shoulder back into a position where it's getting better. Because I said, honestly, as much as it does still pop out now and again, I feel like whilst I'm training in the gym, and my shoulders are getting stronger and the muscles are growing, I feel like it's actually benefiting. So I just think if I carry on the physio, I'm so sorry about
No, no,
this.
you're fine. You're fine. Sorry.
I said,
Is it time
if
for
I
the
carry
next
on,
meal?
no, it's actually my mum. So I have I'm obviously sponsored by JP,
Hmm.
and we have like an online log, and I have to set a reminder every day to remind me to do my online log because
I
if
got
not,
you.
I'll forget. So I have alarm on my phone that
I've got
reminds me to
I've
do
got
that.
I've got so many alarms. I've got alarms for like what do they call them? Like different like supplements and different vitamins and like alarms to do different things. I've got my phone is going off like every 10 minutes for something. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Like I'm so used to eating my meals at the same time every day now. So a lot of the time, like I don't need alarms for my meals,
Hmm.
but yeah, I need that alarm every night because sometimes if I'm busy at this time of night, I'll be like, all right, I just need to stop and do this, and I'll just do it, and then
Hmm.
I know it's done because I don't want to forget doing it because we get in
That's
trouble.
funny. Yeah. So
What was I saying?
oh, I can't remember now. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but so I think we were on the lines of talking about like when you started like weight training, you started feeling better, it started getting stronger.
Yeah, I just kind of explained to them that I felt that if I wanted to continue doing the physio, just so that I kind of saw that through. I didn't feel like I'd quite finished, and I wanted to make sure that this was definitely like right. There's nothing else I can do before surgery because
Right.
I will just avoid surgery. Like I've
Mhm.
never touched wood had surgery for anything. Um,
Yeah.
Luckily,
It's
and I kind of feel like it's a good thing,
mhm.
because like I said before, I think if you have surgery for an issue or something, I feel like it's going to it could bring up like reoccurring issues later down the
Right.
line.
Right. Well, I mean, also, like, having surgery is not a joke. Like, for any type of major surgery, you're going to have to go under. And anytime you go under and they start cutting on you, there's risks involved, So no matter how small the surgery might be, there's risks involved. So, yeah, definitely want to try to avoid any kind of surgery if you can, So I think you probably made the right decision, especially, now that you're 100% anyway. So it seems like you definitely did that. So.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like people just get very impatient.
Mhm.
Like I say, it took me 2 years to recover completely from a shoulder dislocation. So, and that was I had to keep doing the exercises daily.
Mhm.
And I think if people just give up on that, like they might do them for a couple of weeks and then be like, oh, I'm not really seeing any difference, and then just ignore it, and just leave it, and then that's when it can either get worse or just not get any better.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like how society is in general now. Like everybody just wants stuff fast, and it's like they want everything fast. They want muscles fast. They want, weight loss fast. They
Still
want,
want muscles fast.
yeah. So, do you run into that with your clients? Like they're just like it's not happening as fast as they want it to happen, or at least they thought, that it would.
Yeah, like some of them are really like accepting in the sense of they're really happy that they know, right, I need a year or two to grow before I compete, or
Hmm.
Some of them, like if they're say like a fat loss client, they're kind of I want it now, like I want to be this
Yeah.
weight now, or I want to look at this now. And you just kind of have to explain that it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Why do you think some of us as competitors sometimes do 20-week diets? And I mean, that's like a 20-week diet from being what other people would think is sort of a decent body fat level.
Mhm.
So that's not like completely out of shape 20
Right.
weeks diet.
Right.
That's like average, pretty decent
Yeah.
shape.
That's why
20-week diet
most
for a
people
prep.
most people think that you're in like good shape when you when you start your prep probably. So
Yeah, yeah.
so you step on stage 6 months in, and then how does your like career progress after that?
So I did lots of shows. I turned, well, let me think. So this was in 2015. I did my first show and I come third.
Mhm.
I did the first timers category, so and I prepped myself as well. So I was really proud for
Oh
like
wow.
prepping myself. Like
Yeah.
I obviously had help from my friend, the training partner,
Mhm.
that first got me into bodybuilding. So he obviously gave me little bits of advice and things like that, but he didn't like completely coach me. I kind of just did it myself,
Mhm.
and took a little bit of advice off him. Hence why now when I look back at my poses, they look like men's bodybuilding poses.
That's hilarious.
Like
Uh,
honestly, it's so funny. But there was no at the time there was no posing coaches. There was no such
yeah.
thing. Like there's so many people now doing posing coaches and online coaching and things like that, but there was nothing around then. I didn't know any bodybuilders. This one guy that I was
Mhm.
training with that took me under the wing at the gym was the only person I knew that was into bodybuilding. I didn't
Mhm.
know any other females near me that did bodybuilding.
Mhm.
I rocked up to my first show and I went on my own. Didn't take any friends, family, or anything, just went on my own,
Right.
competed. Didn't really tell that many people that I was doing it because it wasn't an accepted thing.
Right.
Not many people that I know, none of my friends were doing it, none of them were into the gym, none of them really understood what I was doing. So I didn't really tell anybody and just kind
Mhm.
of rocked up and did it. I
Yeah.
come third in that one. And then I went on to the British finals and I come fourth or fifth. I can't really remember. I
Mhm.
think I was fourth or fifth at the British finals, which I was quite happy with, to say that I only come third at the qualifier. And then to be chucked in the mix with girls that have been competing for years and then to
Yeah.
come fourth or fifth, I was quite happy.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
that's great.
yeah, and then I ended up doing a show, I think it was 2 weeks after the British. I just decided to jump in it whilst I was in shape just to get a little bit more stage time, a little bit more
Mhm.
experience. Um, and the last one was the best I'd looked, obviously because I'd been dieting throughout.
Mhm.
Um, the one that was 2 weeks after the British was the best that I'd looked. I then obviously took some time off. I think it took about 6 or 7 months off, like off season. Come back and hit the same category, and I did about 4 or 5 shows the following year in that category.
Yeah.
Um,
So you
and
did
I
you
always
you did tone figure again? That's
yeah, I did
mhm.
tone figure again, and I placed top 5 in every single one that I did.
Mhm.
I've never, like, touch wood, I've never not placed.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never not placed in a show. I've always placed top 5. Um,
That's not a
so
lot,
I
that's something that a lot of people can't say. Like that's cracking the top 5
yeah,
in
I
any
feel like I've
show is a
cursed
big
now
deal.
though.
So
I feel like I've cursed it. It's gonna happen at some point.
you
It's gonna
gotta
happen.
you gotta keep winning. That's it. You gotta keep doing well.
It it's gonna happen. Like, I'm waiting for the day that I don't place. It's gonna happen. I mean, I
That's
hope
funny.
not. I'll
Yeah.
try my best not to,
Let's
but
hope
it's
that it
gonna
doesn't.
happen. Yeah, and then, like, fast forward from there, I competed for another 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
I jumped so I did toned figure, and then after my second year of doing toned figure, the judges told me, after another off season, you're gonna be looking at athletic figure, which is
Mhm.
the next category up. So that's more similar to the IFBB figure. It's
Got it.
definitely a little bit smaller than that, but it's more similar in, like, sort of condition and things like that.
Mhm.
So they told me that I would be better moving up into that category. So obviously I did an off season, come back and did that category. And then I seen fitness, and at the time it was with the UKBFF, which is like the equivalent of Two Bros now in the
Mhm.
UK. which is obviously the qualify. It's like NPC for you guys. That
Got it.
obviously
Yeah.
feeds into the IFBB.
Yeah.
Um,
So it
so
does.
I
You said it does feed into the IFBB.
Yeah, yeah, I did, yeah. UKBFF doesn't anymore. They've gone off on their own, so it's just
I
two
see.
bros.
Okay.
But at the time I saw that category and I was like, this is what I want to do. But I saw all the girls and there was a lot bigger than what I was. And I was like, right, I'm going to take 2 year out or a year or two, however long I needed, and then come back and do this category.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with my gymnastics background, I thought this gives me a chance to kind of try and get back into gymnastics over the next 2 years
Yeah.
and get back on stage and, just go for it. So I took 2 years out. Within the 2 years, I coached myself again. I got back into gymnastics. I met back up with some old gymnastics friends, just for a little bit of fun. Just went and just trained, practiced some skills that I used to do. Just tried to get back into it. And then I met this girl that is or is still my coach for gymnastics and dance, and she sort of puts together all my routines for me.
Okay.
I sort of met her and told her like what I was thinking about doing, and so she helped me put together my first routine for the pro qualifying show that I did.
Mm-hmm.
The pro qualifying show, I didn't expect anything from it. I just wanted, it was an international show, it was in the UK, it was the Ben Leader. I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to just rock up and see where I stood in the lineup of the girls, because at that time, them shows were, or they still are, they're the highest standard shows out of all the federations. And I just thought, if I can put myself on stage with the best girls and see look out of that lineup, and then I know what I've got to work on and for where I need to be.
Right. Right.
Little did I know, stepping on stage, that I was going to walk away with a pro card.
Uh-huh.
Like, I did not expect that at all. I've got videos of me coming off stage, absolutely crying my eyes out. Like, when it's just so unexpected.
Yeah.
It was so
Sometimes
unexpected.
that's the best. Like sometimes going in somewhere without expectations,
Yeah,
that's when you do the best. You kind of don't put that pressure on yourself. You just enjoy it, and then you tend to look better, perform better, when you don't have a whole lot of things just weighing you down.
yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed that prep. I prepped myself again for that one, and I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot about my body. Obviously, I'd been dieting and training now for like 6 years to that point, and I'd done quite a lot of shows. I think that was the show that I turned pro at was maybe my 18th or 19th show.
What
So I'd
year
done
was
quite
that? Do you remember?
2019.
Okay, so a couple of years ago. Hmm.
Yeah, so I turned pro in March 2019, and then competed. My pro debut was October 2020, so
So
last year.
you turned pro. It's a 2 year anniversary now, basically,
Yeah, yeah,
of you being pro.
yeah. And like last year, I had planned to do my pro debut at Chicago.
Hmm.
I'd planned to do Chicago and Vancouver. Me and Jade were going to go. We'd planned to pay to go together and everything,
Yeah,
to do Chicago and Vancouver together. But then obviously COVID happened and
yeah,
our shows got cancelled.
yeah.
So we had to kind of push it back. We all ended up competing in October. So everyone from my gym, so me, Meg, Kuba, and Jade, and a couple of
Hmm.
others.
I just had
Um,
Jade on
yeah, it's just
a couple of days. I can't remember when, but just recently.
yeah, I trained with her. I think it was on the Monday.
Hmm.
I don't know if you had her on the Monday night
I
or the
think,
Tuesday.
yeah, I feel all the days are running together now, but I know it was just very recent. Yeah.
Yeah, she mentioned it. So we was
Mhm.
training, and she like brought it up in conversation. I was like, oh no way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
that's cool.
but yeah, so yeah, Jade's like one of my training partners.
Awesome.
Because we film for the JP site, so we train together quite often.
Hmm. And so at this point, you said you did compete in, when did you say was this
Yeah,
time?
October we did the Europa
October. Yeah.
Pro,
Hmm.
the Europa Pro in Spain. So that was the only show really that we could get to
Mm-hmm.
because of flight restrictions and COVID and things like that. We're really lucky that that show still went ahead, and it was amazing. It was such a good atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
and there were so many pros that managed to actually get there. It
Right.
made it a really, really good show. Just because my category isn't always at every show. So fitness isn't at every show like figure and obviously men's open is always
Mm-hmm.
at pretty much nearly every show,
Right.
and bikini and things like that, whereas fitness is very limited. And for the looks of it for this year, there's actually quite a few more European shows, which is really good.
Yeah.
So obviously, with obviously the restrictions and stuff, if there is still going to be restrictions this year, that makes it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
easier. The fact that we don't have to try and get to America to compete,
Yeah, that's
even
tough
though I do
during
want
this.
to go to America to compete, it just makes it easier that with the restrictions, this year we're probably looking at doing European shows rather than
Sure.
American shows and things like that.
Sure. I mean, get some, you can get some wins under your, under your belt, get some good placings, and then come to the US and continue the trend when, when there's an opportunity. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
have you, so fitness and figure have very similar physiques, right? It's just that
Oh
it's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
so have you ever thought about just competing in figure also? Like in
Yeah,
the
I have
show,
actually.
in the shows that they don't have fitness per se?
Yeah, I have thought about it. I did actually talk to someone in the IFBB last year about it.
Hmm.
But the thing is with it, you'd kind of have to decide which one you was going to do because the points don't add up. So say, for example, if I was to compete like I did in October, and when I competed in October, I come fourth. So that is, I get so many points then for coming fourth.
Hmm.
If I was then to go to Romania, which was, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks later, and compete at the Romania Muscle Fest, in figure, because they didn't have fitness, because this was what I was going to do, they
Right.
said that the points wouldn't add up. So the points would add up separately. So
Got it.
they would add up for fitness and they would add up for figure. So
So yeah,
for
yeah.
me, because it is good to compete and kind of get your name out there a little bit more. But I think if you're going to do a season, you either need to do one or the other.
You don't want
If
to
you get a
overwhelm
win,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, if you get a win, you can go. So, say if I won in fitness and then decided, you know what, I actually want to compete in figure at the Olympia,
Hmm.
I could transition and go and do figure at the Olympia. That's fine.
Hmm.
But your points don't add up separately. So, if you get a win, if I got a win in figure, I could then be like, actually, I want to compete in fitness at the Olympia,
Hmm.
which is that's fine. But your points don't
I
cross
see.
over.
So you can't really do both, but if you win in one, you can choose what division that you're going to
Yeah,
compete in.
yeah,
Got
yeah,
it.
for sure. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I know fitness, and I've had several fitness competitors on that were on the Olympia primarily last year. And they like, it's a very close knit community. Like, the fitness girls, there's not that many of them, so they're very close knit. A lot of them know each other and like personally and things of that
Mm.
nature. What did you think about, excuse me, what did you think about the fitness Olympia this last year?
Oh, it was amazing. I stopped up to
Mhm.
watch it. So it was on here. It was about, I don't know what time it was about 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning. And
Mhm.
I stopped up. I was at my friend's house. We stayed up to watch it. And honestly, I miss his routine,
Mhm.
was insane and absolutely mind blowing. Oksana, such a good comeback.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed watching her routine. Yeah, it was really good. Like the standard was really, really good at the Olympia this year.
Yeah, I talked to Missy like a week or two after, I had her on the show
Mm,
after she won, and she was telling me about how that routine came about and everything that she had to go through to make that routine happen, especially during the pandemic, since
mm,
all the gyms were closed. So like, she had to go and buy some mats for the house. She went and like, bought all the equipment that needed to be done, practiced outside, practiced like just everything and anything that you could do to make sure that that you're prepared. And especially with
yeah,
Oksana coming back, that was because the word was with Oksana is essentially coming back to just take her title back. That's what everyone
Oh,
thought.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's what else was she gonna do?
Yeah, and nobody even thought anything else. And then with Missy winning like that, that was such a big, big deal because she essentially she essentially uncrowned, even though Oksana wasn't the champ, but this last time she essentially uncrowned the Miss Olympia, like Fitness Olympia. So that was a big feather in her hat, for sure. So I really enjoyed it. What did you think about the rest of the show? Did you get to watch the rest of it, the rest of the Olympia?
Yeah, I think we watched on playback, obviously the men's open.
Right, right.
I didn't really watch much of the other categories. I watched figure because my friend Rhea was competing in figure.
Okay,
Um, Rhea come 10th. So I did watch
very cool,
figure.
very cool.
The other categories I kind of just caught up from Instagram.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
I just kinda
that's
like
just something that
checked to
happens.
see where people come and like what happened. But because it was on, like I think the actual Olympia over here went on till about 5 a.m. in the morning. So
Mm.
I was already tired by 2 a.m. So I
Yeah, I
just stayed
mean,
to watch fitness and then watch the rest on like replay.
I'll be honest with you. If it was that late here, I probably wouldn't have watched it. I probably would have just caught it late, like in another day. But
But the thing is, like, I kind of wanted to watch fitness for myself,
mhm,
because if it's like, when like, I don't know, if you're really into football or something like that,
right,
and you don't want to know the score, you can't go on like social media because you're
yeah,
gonna know.
yeah, yeah,
Or if like you're into a series and people put all the spoilers everywhere, like you don't want to know. So I kind of wanted to watch it for myself so that I didn't wake up in the morning and accidentally click on Instagram and then see who the winners were because I'd be like, no.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I've been in those situations before, like some sporting event or something like that, and I didn't catch it, or I knew I wasn't gonna watch it, so I was gonna watch it later, and completely didn't look at Instagram because I know in my explore and everything, it's gonna populate all the stuff I like, which is all those sports and everything. So I was like, no, 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 I can't do that. I want to watch it first. So I completely understand where you're coming from. So what at this point with everything going on, um things are kind of, we don't know what's going to happen with the shows. I mean, we assume some of them are going to happen, uh, possibly some of them are going to get canceled. We don't know if things keep getting better, maybe nothing gets canceled. We don't know. What
Yeah.
are you thinking for this upcoming, well, the year that we're in, actually, for 2021 for you?
Okay, so I'm actually aiming for like October, November.
Hmm.
So I want to continue my off season. I've probably got around about between 12 and 14 weeks left of my off season, and then I'll start prep. Um, so I'm looking to aim for around about October, November, which will be qualifiers after the Olympia. So that means they are qualified for 2022.
Hmm.
So the aim is to try and qualify for the following year. Just the reason behind that is because I feel like I need to grow a lot more. I
Hmm.
wanted a lot more time to really perfect my routine before I
Hmm.
get back on stage again. And I really want to bring a different package from what I brought at my pro debut at Europa. I was happy with my package, but definitely if I'm wanting to be really competitive and up there, and placing higher than I did before, I need to bring something better. Um,
So when you
so I
say
just knew
go
that
ahead.
I
I'm
needed.
sorry. No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
knew that I needed a little bit of a longer off season. That's all.
so when you say better, what do you mean? Are you trying to add more size, more like what are you focusing on when you say better?
So mainly for me, my biggest weakness is my back.
Hmm.
It's an area that I really struggle with, and when I'm training, it's an area I really struggle to connect with.
Hmm.
So it's taken a lot of going through my movements with my coach, going through execution and form, and just making sure everything's on point, making sure that I can feel everything, going through like my exercise selection, making sure that I'm picking the right exercises for me to help me grow. And do you know what? In the last like 12 weeks, my back has grown. Like I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure it's eaten itself. Like it's nearly doubled in size. So I'm really happy with my progress so far. And to say that I've got another 12 weeks left, I definitely think it's going to be coming on stage a little bit different this time.
Yeah. So you attribute that to just trying to get you've been having better success at your mind muscle connection with your back?
Yeah, for sure. It's just, I think it's more down to, um, like I don't know how to word this. I didn't know exactly how to get that mind muscle connection with my back. I
Mhm.
could train and I'd just be moving weight and I wouldn't
Right.
feel it. And then now, like, I'm training, and for the first time in this off season, well, for the first time since I've been training, really, I've actually felt like a back pump. Like,
Mhm.
I know what it feels like to get that. And before, I must have, don't know what I was doing, but I must have not been training properly because I couldn't feel my back.
Yeah. It's strange how that is, right? Like you can be doing the same movements, but unless you have that connection, it almost sounds like kind of mysterious. It's like you can't really, it's not really tangible. You don't like, there's not really anything you can point to, but it's like, but you
Mm.
definitely know the difference between when you have it and when you don't. And, when, as you train. So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Okay. So what does your off season look like as far as like nutrition is concerned?
So off season right now, I'm on nearly 5,000 calories at the minute. So I'm eating a fair amount of food. And that's on training days. Rest days is around about 4,500. I don't actually do any cardio in my off season. I stay reasonably lean just because I still do my gymnastics and things like that.
Mhm.
And that kind of, for me, I kind of just count that as my cardio. I do count my steps like daily. I usually do around 8,000 steps a day.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I
yeah.
have to make sure that I'm recovering from each session. And other than that, like that's how my off season is.
Do you is there anything that you use to like help you with, know if you're recovering, or is it just how you feel? Like you feel good, then you feel like you're recovered.
So yeah, I just kind of keep an eye out on my body. So obviously I check in with my coach weekly. I kind of know if my body's fatigued and not fully recovered. Obviously if you're physically hurting, you know that you're not fully recovered. Or if you've not had a good night's sleep and things like that, you can kind of tell that your body's not completely rested. So I think when you've been training for quite a while, you know yourself if you're completely
Mhm.
rested and ready for a session, and you know if you're not. I know my coach and a couple of other people do use like the aura rings. Have you
Mm.
heard of them?
I haven't heard of him. What is that?
So it's like like a fitness tracker,
Yeah.
it's a ring, and it actually has like it monitors your like heart rate and your
Yeah.
sleep variability and things like that, and it kind of tells you your readiness, so like your daily readiness. So that means if you've had like enough sleep,
Hmm.
if your heart rate is raised for whatever reason, which could mean like that you're poorly or that you're like just things like that. So it's really
Yeah.
good, but they are quite expensive.
Yeah.
So I've not yet
There's
invested in one, but I do think I'll be looking at getting one.
Yeah, there's also one you can look into, and I haven't personally used it, but everybody, at least on this side of the world, like seems to like it. It's called Whoop. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it basically like straps around
Yeah.
your chest. Yeah, and then it does a very similar thing. It tracks it tracks your sleep, tracks your recovery, everything like that. So, but yeah, there's a lot of those, but they are fairly expensive. They're not
Yeah,
they're
they're
not cheap.
expensive, but I think like when you're this deep into a sport, I think it's
Hmm.
very beneficial.
For sure.
Um, I don't think it's like 100%. I don't think you can just look at it and be like, oh, well, it says I'm not ready to train today. I'm not going to train. Because I do think that sometimes your body can take a lot more than you think.
Sure.
But you've got to know
Sure.
your limits and know that you're not pushing it too far. So if you feel like shit and you
Yeah.
wake up and you look, and then it says you are, then you're like, right, yeah, rest day.
Right, right, right. Yeah, there was a guy that I was listening to, and that's what he was talking about it, and he wasn't recovering well, but like the thing was telling him that he wasn't recovering well like every day almost. So he's like, well, I can't like what am I supposed to do? Just not train every single day. So you have to like you just have to push yourself, and then figure out maybe why you're not recovering well and see if you can address that.
Yeah.
So you can't just like stop training just because, just because you're like the thing says that you're not recovering well. But what do your calories look like when you're in prep? Do you severely drop them?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say like I severely dropped them. I think last prep, I think the lowest they got to when I was like my last couple of weeks out was probably around about 2,000 calories.
Hmm.
But I think in fitness, I think girls, I suppose everybody's different because everybody's bodies are different. But I think in fitness you can probably get away with being on a little bit extra.
Yeah,
So the routine practice and things like that takes up a hell of a lot of calories. Like you burn so much doing that.
sure.
And when you're doing like a routine practice like twice a week, and then you've got skills practice as well. So
Mhm.
I usually do that like twice a week as well. So I'm doing 4 sessions of gymnastics a week, plus training maybe 5 times a week.
Yeah,
Um, so you've got to take that into account. And then I didn't last prep, I didn't do any cardio. I kind of counted my gymnastics as my cardio, and
yeah,
obviously I did steps as well. So I do go on walks and things like that, but I'd never did like hit or any sort of
right. Like your
direct
stairs or
cardio.
anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, yeah. I imagine the gymnastics is, really burns everything up. I mean, that's a full body, workout. That's it's
Yeah, well,
hard.
the thing is, the routines are 2 minute long. So if you think about it, if you're, say, like if you're doing hit training, for example, like hit
Hmm.
cardio, um, I kind of see the gymnastics that we do. If you're practicing your routine, you're doing 2 minutes of a
Hmm.
full routine where you're non-stop jumping around like a lunatic, and then you have like a little bit of a rest, and then I run through it again. So
Yeah.
obviously having the couple of minutes rest, like 5 minutes rest, and then going back and doing it again,
Mhm.
really sort of gets up your cardio levels and things like that.
Sure, sure. No, no, I completely understand. And you can't like really be too low because then I mean you could so like I imagine that you have to keep your calories at a certain level because you can't get as low as the girls like in other divisions and they don't have to do anything like from a physical standpoint. So, you don't want to hurt yourself if you don't, if you feel fatigued or
Yeah,
there sometimes when you're in a low calories extreme deficit, you can get like head fog and things of that nature. You don't want to have that when you're, you know, tumbling and
yeah, for
doing all
sure.
those other things.
I think the thing is with fitness, I think it's probably one of the harder categories for sure.
Oh yeah.
Like, mm, very mentally tough,
Hmm.
because not only are you dieting, and some girls will have to do cardio, like they will have to do it to get down,
Right.
and some girls will have to go low in calories to get down.
Hmm.
I'm just fortunate that I don't know whether it's a genetics thing, but I do push my calories really high in my
Yeah.
off season, and I do really push them so that then when I do start coming down, I've got plenty of calories to chip away at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if
Makes
you don't
sense.
bring your calories that high in the off season, where are you going to take everything away from?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. That makes
got
complete
less
sense.
variables.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. That makes complete sense because I mean, I've even heard of people just talking about not staying like extremely lean all year round for that purpose. Because when you get into prep and you get into those situations where you do need to drop, like where are you going to drop it to if you're already
Yeah, exactly.
pretty
If
lean?
if you're like, the more calories you can add in your off season, obviously not going silly. Like I wouldn't want to get myself completely out of shape
Right.
just for a prep. Um, but obviously we have to do our routine and gymnastics practice in off season as well. So I still need to be quite mobile. I can't just get fat.
Right.
Um, and then like, so I do like to build up my calories while staying like fairly lean and quite in
Yeah.
shape. And then obviously if I put myself in a really good position for prep, it just means that later on in prep I don't have to come down as low in calories as some people do. So
Yeah.
I suppose it's just like the work never stops. So in your off season, as long as you're putting in the work and you're pushing your calories up, like for me, off season is harder than prep.
Mm.
I love prep and I love off season as well. But for me, the point of pushing calories, like eating food to the point where you're full and you don't want to eat anymore,
Yeah, that's
and then
tough.
you know you've got another meal to get in, and you get to that meal and you're not hungry,
Yeah.
and you just sat there spooning yogurt in your mouth, like I don't want to eat this anymore. Um, that and like people are like, oh, it's amazing, you're on so many calories. I'm like, I really wish I wasn't.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
I find that harder than actually just ignoring hunger.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's interesting that and I don't have that problem. Like I'm the opposite. I have a hard time not eating,
Mm,
but I do understand where you're coming from because there's a lot of people that think that oh, well, you if you have all the calories you can eat, that's a great thing. And it's like sometimes for some people just as tough for them to eat more than it is for you to eat less. Like it's just a different, different problem, so to speak, So yeah, for
Yeah, I
sure.
feel like the beginning of an off season is amazing because your body just absorbs every little thing
Hmm.
you eat and your appetite is sky high. So you're enjoying all the extra little bits of food. You're enjoying the pre-workout muffin that you get to have, and you're enjoying like the food in general because you've been deprived of it for like
Yeah.
however many months you've been dieting. But then you do come to a point in your off season where you're like, right, I'm sick of food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't want to eat anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
makes
I've hit
complete
that
sense.
stage.
Yeah, you're there
I've got
now.
like 12
So
to go.
you're there now. All right. Well, hey, Kamara, we did like a little, I think we did a little over an hour, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. Thank you again for coming on the show. If somebody wanted to contact you for like coaching or advice, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Through Instagram would probably be the best way. So my
Okay.
Instagram handle is Kamara Jane. So that's Kamara Jayne _ IFBB Pro. If you just pop me a DM on there, I'll get back to you.
Awesome. And I'll definitely be sure to tag that as always on all my shows down at
Okay.
the bottom. And again, you have a great rest of the evening. And thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you take care. Bye bye.